Oh, where do I start, guys? It's back to the grandfather, the granddaddy, the original epicenter of video gaming. It's Atari. And on this exciting episode of A Blast from the Past, we're going to be looking at the amazing Atari Lynx. Or maybe not so amazing, but we're still going to have a quick look at it. Atari Lynx handheld. I bought this specific Lynx about, it must have been well over 12 months ago now. I've been meaning to get around to do this video for over 12 months. Hadn't even tried the Lynx after I'd actually received it via an eBay auction. Fired it up actually yesterday just to check that it did work. Thankfully it does, so I can actually do some form of video, even though I'm not actually going to show you much about the actual gaming device itself. Just have a bit of a quick chat about it, really, more than anything. Atari Lynx. An amazing handheld, at least as regards to technology wise, or actually what it could do technically at the time when it was released. Back in, just looking at the wiki here, back in what, 1986? 1989 it was released, so it was around the same time the Game Boy was about. I'm sure a lot of you guys know about the Atari Lynx. It's hardly something that is I suppose unknown, really. It's, oh, I'm going a bit orange here, actually, looking at the old viewfinder. Anyway, let's forget about the lighting. I'll try and get through this before it gets too dark and I turn into a total tango man. So the Atari Lynx. The version that I've got here is the version 2. So it's a slightly smaller version. Now when I say slightly smaller, I will actually weigh this up to my head and you'll see actually how massive this is. Now I haven't got a small head or a big head. I've got a normal size head. I might have a big forehead, but I've got a normal size head. Look at the size of that mofo. That is huge. I mean, it is massive, and it was one of the big things about the Atari Lynx when it came out, the sheer size of it. It is absolutely massive. Now, one of the reasons I suspect why it's so huge is because of the actual power of the console. At the time of release, it was pretty awe-inspiring, actually. Yeah, it's a colour device. It unfortunately suffers from the same problem that a number of the other types of handhelds of that era. If I think about the Game Gear that had a passive LCD screen, LCD, TFT, LCD, passive I'll check my specs. I'll check my specs. I'm sure it was a, oh, this is shit in it, LCD screen. Passive LCD screen. It was backlit, pretty gash. At the time they were actually okay, but in reality they were pretty gash. It wasn't until the PC Engine GT came out shortly after the Lynx, it wasn't that too far after, that actually showed what was possible on the current gen of screen technologies. And actually when we look back at the PC Engine GT, by today's standards, that's not particularly great. So the Lynx really doesn't fare very well. And actually, until I actually turned the unit on and had a look at the display and played the game, I thought, yeah, this is this is pretty cash. This belongs well in the past. But it was a device that I bought back in the day. I bought the original Series 1 Lynx, which it's actually bigger than this. think it was slightly, I'm not sure if it was slightly thinner, but it was certainly longer from what I remember. This was the restyled version. But back in the day, it looked pretty smart. I remember playing Californian games on it. We have it here, Californian Games, and this was the Impact game that came with the original version. I can't remember what versions they did on the Lynx 2, which was this one. I think Batman was one of the games. The version that I've got was the one without any Impact games, but it's all boxed. I've got the box there, and this was actually sold in the UK, distributed. I think it was by Telegames. Well, they certainly took over distribution once Atari went sort of tits up, because they started selling the consoles. I think they bought up a lot of old stock, to be honest. So the actual device is apart from being huge, you know, it's got your normal sort of layout on there with the D-pad, and it's not a bad D-pad actually. Well, I say it's not bad. It's not actually. It doesn't feel. It feels quite comfortable, but it doesn't actually feel that responsive. It feels quite dead. But and the buttons on there for fire and whatever. I actually had 4 buttons on. The reason for that was the actual unit itself. You could make it right or left-handed, so you could actually press some combination of buttons on the unit itself, and it would effectively change the screen over so it's all the way round, but meant you could actually play left or right-handed, which was great. And actually, I don't think it's ever been replicated prior or since. So that probably begs the question how important that function was if nobody else has ever bothered doing that. Actually, how do left-handed players get on actually with right-handed play consoles? I don't actually give a shit because I'm right-handed, but it'd be interesting how some of you guys get on. Do you find it awkward or? And one of the biggest things about the Lynx at the time was the graphical capabilities, not so much because of the screen, but really because of actually what the unit could do. And it had some hardware built-in functionality around scaling, could do some really good scaling effects. Certainly at the time, you didn't. You certainly had nothing like the scaling effects you get on the Lynx. I don't think, to be honest, any console. Yeah, because Super Nintendo came a year later, I think. Did it come a year later than the Lynx? Can't remember. Get me dates right. 89, 90. Can't remember. But certainly for a handheld console, it was pretty epic. I mean, it really was. But unfortunately, like most devices, unless you get good software out, or a lot of software, the console tends to fail. The Lynx failed. And it was really down to developer support. It didn't get a massive amount. The actual cartridges themselves, whistled then, the actual cartridges themselves, they're very quaint little things actually. I mean, that's clacks, but look how thin it is. Real sort of smart, focusing on that. I mean, you can see it anyway, you don't have to go focusing, does it? But it's, you know, they're really slim and dainty. Awesome. Of course, they go in the back of the machine, only one way because they got a little hook on there to actually pull it out. You see that? Slots in the back, job done. Now, as with most of the handheld consoles of the time, I say most, apart from the Game Boy, because the Game Boy was really good on battery life, but certainly the Game Gear, this, the PC Engine GT, because of the screen technology, in essence, even though the GT is slightly different to the Game Gear or the Lynx, but it's quite a bit different actually because it used a TFT active matrix screen, but because of the backlight facility or the backlight technology, in fact it was really to do with the backlight technology. It wasn't so much because of the screen technology, it was to do with the backlight technology, is that these units had fluorescent tubes in them, and they took a massive amount of power to actually power them up. And this Lynx takes 6 AA batteries, but as with the Game Gear, as with the PC Engine GT, they didn't really last very long. So as a as a handheld device for portable gaming, they were pretty shit, if I'm being honest. Now the unit I bought actually came with a Telegames mains adapter, which obviously defeats the whole object of having a portable device. But obviously if you're using it at home, that's exactly what you'd want. You would want a power adapter. Strangely enough, in the box itself, as a unit, it doesn't come with a power adapter. It's an additional extra. So what does this look like? In fact, let's put in California Games. It looks pretty awful. And even based on today's video technology, it's going to look dog shit. And I was actually quite surprised how dog shit it looked. The only adjustment you've got on it, as you did in the day, was just brightness. The sound on this device as well was really good for a handheld, in my opinion. It was certainly better than the Game Gear or the Game Boy by any stretch of the imagination. Oh, quite starting already. But you probably can't even see. It's so dog shit. Oh, you can just about make it out. But that is just it probably doesn't look too bad when it's static. But because of the fluorescent tubing, you have to sort of have it at a certain angle, get the balance right, brightness even, and it's not great at all. I actually think this screen was slightly better than the Game Gear one. You didn't seem to get the blur on this screen that you got with the Game Gear. And the pixels themselves are quite well defined. So it's... I don't think it's bigger. Is this screen bigger? Is it slightly bigger than the Game Gear? I'd have to pull my Game Gear out, but it certainly does look clearer than the Game Gear screen. But it's... I mean, like I've said, by today's standards, it's pretty shit. I've got to be honest. And you guys obviously know about that as regards to people who've already seen the Lynx or know what I'm going on about. I mean, it is, you know, would you really want to play on that today? Probably not, to be honest. But it's a bit nostalgia. Turn that off. It's a bit of nostalgia. It wasn't a particularly expensive unit. I don't know actually how much these are going for nowadays. Like I said, this was about a year ago I bought this on eBay. I think I picked it up for around about £45, I think. 45 pounds. I didn't pay a massive amount for it. It's boxed, it's in really good condition, and there's no scratches on the screen. I've got a few games with it. So just for something to add to the collection, I thought, sod it, I'll go and buy it, and I did. And like I said, I've got California Games, which is a great little game actually. I loved this back in the day. One of my most favourite games on the Lynx is Clax, and I managed to pick up a copy of Clax. Brilliant game that, oh, spitting everywhere. Brilliant game that is, absolutely brilliant puzzle game. Another classic really for the Lynx is Road Blasters. Again, that's a great little driving game. Plays really well, shows off the 3D scalar effects very well. Scrapyard Dog, I think it was pretty gashed, to be honest. I don't ever remember having that first time around, but got that. And the last game I've got is Steel Talons, which again is another 3D based game. I think this was okay, this was. But that's Steel Talons. So I have 5 games for my Atari Lynx collection, but I will be adding to that game collection fairly soon, and it will come up possibly in the next video I do. I'm staying with Atari, and yeah, I won't say no more actually about that. I don't want to give the game away. So yeah, Atari Lynx guys, if you're into Ataris, which I don't actually think many people are. Yeah, because based on my Power is in Your Hands videos, or series of videos, no one actually, people did vote for Atari. People did vote for Atari, but it never won outright, ever. And I must have done 3 or 4 of those requests around those videos, and never come, and I thought, sod it, I'm going to do Atari now, and that's exactly what I've just done. So, Yeah, a bit of a worthless video actually, because it was one of those things. It's all about nostalgia, I think, more than anything. I remember it back in the day. I thought, oh sorry, I'll go and buy one. They're cheap enough. And went and bought one. Finally got round to switch it on, looked at it and thought, yeah, that's shit in it. And it's going to go back in the box and it will go upstairs in the loft. But hopefully it's been amusing, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll speak to you again soon.